I'm delighted to be hosting this show today on Radio Works World, and I'm delighted to be able to share my story with you today. I 5 years ago wrote a book, and from that book has spun off a conference which up till now has been annual, and it's held in London in June every year. And it would be helpful, I'm sure, for me to tell you exactly why I chose to write the book and what the conference is all about. I am a speech and language therapist by training, and I have 3 sons and a great husband, and 12 and a half, nearly 13 years ago, my cousin had a baby boy who was born with only half a heart. And I had probably all the right hormones still flying around my body as my youngest son was 18 months old. And I just looked at this baby and knew that he just looked like our boys. And that my cousin was not going to be able to look after him, and that we needed to scoop him up and give him a home. So we knew right from the word go that he had a life-limiting medical condition, and we believed that we would be able to manage that because we had a fantastic health visitor locally to us here in the UK, and our GP, and we had great hospitals in relatively close proximity, and we had some friends who had children who had heart conditions, which at the time that their children were born, we didn't know that we would ever need that information. But we did love him and nurture him, but it took 20 months to get him from the children's home that he was placed in when he was born to be placed with us, so that we could initially foster him on a kinship foster placement. As time passed, we realized that he also had lots of other issues, that he has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which of course is masked by the heart condition. So it was tricky to get any diagnosis and treatment and therapy for him, but we knew that he wasn't coping in or going to cope in mainstream school. So we managed to, through my work and the fact that I've been an independent speech and language therapist now since 1997, I had lots of expert witness friends who came with me to court or tribunal to support other families getting support for their young people. And I also knew lots of expert solicitors and barristers who were experts in both family law and in special educational needs and education law. So I was really lucky that they were able to help me navigate the system and to be able to get a statement of special educational needs for our son, and that it wasn't as easy as one thought it might be, because of the fact our child was born in Scotland and he was now living in England, and there is a conflict of legislation in those 2 jurisdictions. So it entailed going to the High Court and back in order even to get him the support that he needed in school. However, we were successful in that, but as time passed, we realized that he was, although cognitively able, he was falling further and further behind in his academic attainments, and he was spending less and less time in the classroom because his behaviour was such that it was affecting the education of the other children, and therefore the teaching assistants would take him out and work with him in the corridor more than he was actually in the classroom. So we knew that he would probably need to go to a specialist school. By now we had a diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder in addition to his heart condition. He'd had all the palliative surgery he could have. He'd had 14 operations, including 3 open heart surgeries. And, you know, we are so lucky to have him. We're so lucky that he is alive. And but we knew that in order to give him a future, in order to enable him to be who he needs to be and should be, that we needed to look at specialist schools. So we initially were only able to get a placement in a school for children with emotional and behavioural disorders, because that was the only diagnosis we had. He benefited enormously from being in small classes, and did start to make some progress in his learning, but of course his behaviour deteriorated, and he learned a much wider range of swear words and defiant and oppositional behaviour. However, because of his heart condition, all the medication that's available for ADHD is contraindicated with his heart condition. And so we were lucky to get a referral down to the Maudsley Hospital in London, which is a world-renowned psychiatric hospital that specialises in really complex cases and getting the medication right. And during the course of their very thorough assessment, they also diagnosed autism. And we were so relieved. Basically because for over 20 years I'd specialised in autism and worked with young people in mainstream and specialist schools with a wide variety of cognitive ability, but somewhere on the autism spectrum. And I see autism as a very positive diagnosis. I think that the issues that there are around autism are around how society and the world disables young people with this diagnosis. But also that it often co-occurs with learning disability, and it's actually the learning disability that is difficult for these young people to make progress with, and makes the ability to learn some of the strategies that really help with some of the issues that prevail in autism. It makes it harder for young people to learn those if they have a degree of cognitive disability as well. However, our son luckily was cognitively bright, and so at last we had opportunities for education that were more specialist, more appropriate for him, and we also had opportunities for a community, for a support group, because there's lots of information out there on the internet about autism. There's lots of information about support services and just people to chat to. Which there wasn't so much with his other conditions. And so a publisher came to me and said, would I write a book about my experiences of going, not just with my own son, but with our other clients to court and tribunal to get the support funded for them that they needed in their school placements, and would I tell the story and the process that families needed to go through. And there were two things that sort of struck my mind really. One was, yes, of course I would be delighted to do this, but I wanted to get other families involved in the process. I wanted to get other families to tell their stories, and I felt that that was really, really important, because there are a range of outcomes that come out of going to court or tribunal, and I felt that often government didn't monitor what happened next. So they know that families ask for a particular type of provision, they know that they decided yes or no, but nobody in government monitors whether that was the right decision or not, and whether that was working for them as a family. And I was really conscious of wanting to share the positives and the negatives, and also the well-being of the family and young person, and not just the educational outcomes. But most importantly, I didn't want it to be a doom and gloom book about how hard the system is to navigate, and you have to do all these really difficult things in order to be able to support your child. I wanted to find out from the families what for each of them worked and made a difference to them as a family at the time and into the future. And I also wanted to find out from them, what made the most difference that we could focus on, so that we have to be aware of the political system, we have to be aware of the legal system, we have to be aware of the economic climate and the lack of resources. But if we can focus on the things that work, then we will make a positive difference to the lives of these young people and families. And so the book and the conference challenge people to take personal responsibility for their own professional and personal development and learning, and challenges them to be supported by the community in order to focus on the things that we know work and to focus on their part in focusing on those issues. And so that's really how the conference was born. And it has been more successful year on year at attracting people who, again, don't necessarily come together in the more traditional professional conferences, which are incredibly expensive and are geared at local authorities and are not really geared at parents. And the parent-led conferences, which are huge numbers, where there are thousands and thousands of people going over many days, really, although there are some expert speakers in there, they're really exhibitions to try and sell parents the books and the equipment and the courses and all of those sorts of things. And I really wanted this to be an intimate forum where parents and professionals come together. Parents and professionals put the child at the centre, or the young person at the centre of their thinking, and to put our brains together, our thoughts together, in order to be able to really innovate and find those inspirational activities that really can enable young people and their families to reconnect with society, to have their voice to be heard. And you know, in my professional work, obviously giving people a voice can be from the very practical, teaching people how to communicate, or providing them with a communication aid. It can be going to court and advocating, but you know, equally important is about empowering the whole family and really connecting to what they are here on the earth to contribute, and how they can contribute that, and how they can be enabled and supported to contribute that, and really have a future, have a life. Because I think that many families, when they have a young person in their family that has lots of issues and challenges, can become quite isolated, can become quite insular. They don't go out, they don't socialise as much as other people. And there are all sorts of thoughts that come into their minds about being judged, and you know, I always give the story that, you know, all of us have bad days and all of us have good days, but most of us can actually ride those bad days without fear if we, you know, just concentrate on our self-care, and you know, we can talk to our friends and our family about them quite openly. Whereas, you know, parents of children with special needs often have, you know, we have, for example, 100 appointments a year, and everything we say in those appointments is written down and it goes into a report. So if I'm having a bad day, that will appear in writing in a report and shared with many, many people. And therefore, it's really a totally different experience of life that you have, both on a personal level as well as on a family level, and the impact that it has on your other family members, grandparents, siblings, etc. So that's how the conference came about. And we just have a very few tickets left for coming in actual person to our sponsors' venue, Field Fisher in London, next Thursday. And I'm going to ask the lovely Natasha or Marina if they want to ask me some questions about this year's event in a moment, to draw out what the themes are going to be from the speakers and exhibitors this year. But the other thing that I think it would be really useful for people who are listening globally to know, that we video record every single presentation, and have done since 2011. And we have launched an online membership community so that families worldwide can actually link into us and to this conference. And they can, if they're members of the community, they can actually get to see these videos whenever they like, and have free access to all of them. But if people want to just purchase certain ones that are relevant to their situation and just purchase the viewing of that particular video or group of videos, then they're very welcome to do that as well.
Wow, Janet, Janet, I'm so taken by your story, because I can't even imagine how difficult it must be. I think I just begin to imagine, but I don't feel the extent of um, the crushing feeling you might have in your heart as a parent. And to me, from what you are saying, I understand that it is a lot more possible.
Mm.
It's not necessarily down to authorities to create new solutions or better solutions or to address the existing issues. And while the bureaucratic system is perhaps very heavy, and I can't even imagine how it's to talk about a bad day and um, knowing that people you never met are going to read that report. You have a file. You don't have a life anymore. You are filed.
Yeah.
And while that's all happening right now, and you are on a mission, it's obvious to me and to everyone listening to us now. You are a woman on a mission, but you take on the world. You are not just stopping at your own circumstances. You are not talking about yourself, but you are talking about everybody, every single person who is affected by unfair treatment. Because this is unfair, to say the least. And you are not saying, well, I have the magical solution. You are saying, let's get together, let's create a community where we can support each other, we are there for each other, and you never feel alone. Again, that's 7.4 billion people on this planet, and we don't even know with accuracy how many people are affected by challenges that they can't even, perhaps they don't even know they have the challenges. And I see this as a process of becoming aware of the challenge, becoming aware of the existing solutions, addressing and enhancing the solutions. And in top of everything, it's your scream from the heart. I can hear that. And you want to be heard because there are people who cannot voice themselves. And unless you create this community where everybody is not just a member, is an active voice, you are really trying to change the way people think about challenges. And what would you expect from our listeners? What do you want each of our listeners to do next to help you create this community and make it really accessible? Open the gates for this magical solution you found it. And I think there is no better way than people being involved and engaged into making progress and changing the old bureaucratic system into a way of life.
Yeah, absolutely. I would absolutely love for every one of our listeners to go to the website, which is www.senconference.co.uk, because there you will see immediately, why we have started this, why we are wanting now to really launch into this membership community, which can be global. And if there is anybody who is, as you say, affected themselves or just feels that they have something that they can offer to this community. I have been this year twice to Romania, and I've been invited to go by a charity who are supporting a cohort of young disabled people who, most of which had birth injury, and they're now in their sort of mid to late 20s. Because in Romania, it is very unusual to see people with any sort of disability, whether it be hidden or obvious. And the reason for that was for many decades, the government there told the whole population, we do not have anybody with a disability in our community. Our population is perfect. And so people, or indeed the government, would hide children away. They would hide their relatives away if they had any sort of degenerative disease that came on in later life, or had an accident and a head injury. They were hidden away. And so what the biggest barrier, therefore, when I go across to Romania, is not actually empowering the young people themselves, but empowering their parents. Empowering their parents to be brave. Empowering their parents to believe that their children, their young people, can have not just a life, not just any old life, but they can have an amazing life. And so by finding those people in the world who are, with their disabilities, showing us the way, showing us that you can have an amazing life with a disability. You might need support, you might need technical help, you might need computers, you might need a community around you. But you know, there are people like Erwin Boven in Holland, who is running an incredibly successful Juice Plus business just by improving his own health, improving his own life, sharing that with the world, and then sharing the product and the business with the world. He has a life that he couldn't imagine before. There's Claire Lomas, who I know that Natasha and I had the pleasure of listening to at a Damsels in Success conference a couple of years ago, and she had a riding accident, was a very successful sportswoman in horse events, and you know, it was suddenly paralysed from, you know, the chest downwards, and most people will have thought, well, actually your life has ended, and in fact the doctor said to her, choose your wheelchair. And yet, you know, Claire sought out the people in the world that could help her, that could provide her with physical regimes, who could provide her with equipment that would actually help her stay as fit and healthy and well as she could, and that she would find sports that she could compete in. So I think she's doing downhill skiing for the Paralympic team now. And she also has raised enormous amounts of money for charity by finding bodysuits that enable her over a long period of time to run marathons. I think it took 7 days for her to walk the London Marathon in such a suit and raise money. She does many talks to schools. She's got married. She's had a child. And she actually now says that she thinks she has a better life now, having had her accident, than she did before. And you know, she wouldn't wish her accident on anybody, but having said that, you know, when you know, the universe conspires for these things to happen, then actually finding the way to be able to live your best life is the same for all of us, regardless of what our challenges are. But the young people and children that we share these stories with soak them up. They absolutely love the fact that there are role models in the world that they can aspire to be. But often it is the parents, the teachers, the therapists who are working with these children who may not have high enough expectations and may not believe that this challenge is a gift. And I have my days too. I have days when, you know, my son's being really difficult behaviourally. And I think, you know, I know that he is a gift. I know that he's here for a reason, and you know, and I love him to pieces. But today is a really hard day, and to actually, you know, acknowledge that, you know, feel into it, have a community that you can share that with, who can actually then help you get out of your funk, who can help you find things that you can do to get back your resilience, get back your energy, get back your focus. Is what you need, rather than, you know, therapists, social workers, doctors going there dear, and you know, offering tea and sympathy, which actually isn't necessarily desperately helpful.
So Janet, my other question is, what have to happen for you as the leader of your mission, for your vision in the next, let's say, 1,000 days, for you to come back here and say, I've done it?
Yeah, absolutely. My vision for the next 1,000 days is to have 1,000 online members sign up to the online community. who can join us, who then, as part of that community, not only get all the inspiring videos that they can watch and share with their children, their schools, their communities, but there will be webinars every month with the experts and other families who have their stories to share. Every month, question and answer, an online Facebook community. And I think that it's building that momentum. It's building that momentum and enabling not just my voice to be heard, but to enable the amalgamation of our integrated and inclusive voices to be heard. Because I know that in the UK, for example, the politicians really don't listen to disabled people or to their families, because as far as they're concerned, we're relatively small in number, and we're not really going to affect greatly the effect of the outcome of the elections. And we don't really, in their view, have enormous buying power or clout when it comes to bringing wealth or offering back to the community in the UK or in the world. And I want to show them that that is different. And I think that if we globally unite as a world community, if we say, actually, we want every member of society to be valued, we want every person, regardless of their challenges, to be supported, to be loved, to know that people have their back, and that you're not constantly having to struggle and constantly having services taken away and increase of challenges to even just have a normal everyday existence. And I think the more voices can join that community, the stronger we will be, and be able to influence in a much bigger and quicker way some of the decisions that need to be made in governments worldwide to support families and make lives better.
Wonderful. That's just so wonderful, Jana. I'm so moved by you sharing the whole story. Obviously, we've spoken several times before, and you've shared bits and pieces. This is so powerful, and you, as Marina said, you really are a leader here, not just to fight for your own son, but for the children all over the place. And we obviously need to let our listeners know the details of your conference in June, because obviously it is literally next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
People who need your help can reach out. People who want to offer support and assistance, can find you and do so. Are you able to share where the event is, how they can reach you, and also the online membership, the online community? I think that's such a fantastic supportive group where people can just be there for one another, know that they're not on their own, and have whether it's the support, funding support, whether it's actual physical support, whether it's just knowing that there's somebody there to reach to hold their hand from time to time, or maybe carry them at some point, because
absolutely.
it's you're amazing with what you do, and you don't feel sorry for yourself, and you just get on with it, and you're passionate about really making a difference and taking on this beautiful boy who is a pure, beautiful soul, and his life is so enriched now because of the work that you and your husband are doing. And obviously his brothers as well, being there for him, and the rest of your family, and knowing he's safe, he's precious, he's loved, and he's valued. It's really important, and everybody counts. You're so right. He is a gift. How can people reach you? How can they get in touch with you? How can they join the online membership community?
Absolutely.
Come to the conference?
Absolutely. I mean, I would love people just to link to me on Facebook. I'm on there just as Janet O'Keefe, so I'm hopefully relatively easy to find. The conference does have a Facebook page as well. It's called Towards a Positive Future this year. I'm rewriting the book and adding new case studies and updating the ones that were there before. And the new title is The Ordinariness of Impairment. And the reason that it's been changed to that is because we've all got things that we're good at. We've all got things that we're not so good at. We're all a unique mix and a unique blend of talents and skills. And regardless of what our challenges are, you know, all of us have the same spirit, all of us have that same soul, and by linking at that level, we can find the essence of every human being and enable them to shine as brightly as they possibly can. In terms of the conference next Thursday, it's sponsored by an amazing group of solicitors called Field Fisher. And their London office, they're an international firm of solicitors. Their London office is in Swan Lane. It's called Riverside House, right on the banks of the River Thames, very close to Tower Hill Tube Station. And the seminar room is on the 5th floor, and there is a wonderful roof terrace which enables you to, during the breaks, network, but in an amazing environment where you can see all the main attractions of London. Tower Bridge is literally a stone's throw, but you can see, you know, many of the other London landmarks like the Tower of London, etc., and the Shard from that roof terrace. The speakers this year, we've got the fantastic woman called Anne Thomas, who is somebody who's been right through all the Tony Robbins programs over the last 10 years and is an amazing coach in her own right. And she's talking to us about the natural superhero that is within each of us. Whether you be a young person yourself with challenges, whether you be a parent, whether you be a therapist, whether you be a teacher, we all have our own superhero inside of us. So she's talking about emotional intelligence and how to find out about your own profile and to nurture your own profile of emotional intelligence in order to be able to unleash your superhero. We've got another fantastic woman called Anita Davey, who is going to be talking about the fact that culture beats strategy every time. And we're talking obviously specifically about the culture within schools, but it could be the culture within any environment where young people are supported. I think that, you know, she's absolutely right, and I've just joined her community of online trainers who provide online training for parents, teachers, and anybody else who would like to learn more about autism, speech language communication needs, hearing impairment, behavior, you know, many different reading, writing, literacy issues, many topics that are absolutely relevant to our children with challenges. I've got a fantastic OT coming who is called Joanna Grace, and she's going to be talking about sensory processing and how that impacts on behavior, and if we can get the sensory environment right and improve that for our young people, then they can actually focus better and learn better. We've got Kiran Hingarani, who is the head teacher of a fantastic school for young people with autism and Asperger's syndrome in Oxfordshire, and he's been doing some impact studies on the amongst his pupils on the effect of integrated speech and language therapy and teaching on the attainments of his young people, their GCSE grades, etc., but also you know, their future and what they go on to do in terms of their jobs and further training and those sorts of things. Lakshmi Patel is coming from Boys Turner Solicitors to give us the update on what is happening with the transition in the UK from statements of special educational needs to education, health and care plans, and what is happening and what should be happening. And again, that's just empowering parents to know what they can do and who they can talk to and who they can get support from if their school or their local authority isn't doing what they should be doing to support their child, how they can get the funding and how they can navigate through the system in order to be able to get the support in place for their child. We've got some exhibitors from the balance procedure, from home care, from the children's reflexology program. So as you can see, we have a myriad of different people, but they're the thing that they all have in common, and Field Fisher, as our sponsors, do as well. They do a lot of medical negligence cases where young people have had a medical accident or a birth injury, and they get the compensation for that family for life, to enable that young person not just to survive, but to thrive, and to have as close to the life that they should have had, that they can have in the future. So it's through those cases and those organisations that we know what's possible. We know that if you can provide the best possible therapy, for example, and equipment, then actually people can live in their own home. They don't have to live in institutions. They can have support workers who can actually help them run a business, which provides them with an income, which then means that they need to have less benefits and can be more independent and go on holiday more frequently. And all of that will help with their well-being. They can also create, social groups, both online and practically, that again, we know that, the things that make so much difference to all of us as human beings is communication and connection and compassion. And so if we can, help all of our young people and families and those that support them, so it's in a sense it's about getting the creativity, and the final speaker at the conference is another speech and language therapist called Libby Hill, and she's talking about how we find solutions, and she runs her speech and language therapy practice not just in the UK, but she has a global magazine that's available everywhere, and she also runs a franchise business called Smart Talkers. And that is, she has people who are franchisees of that all over the world, improving the communication of children in many, many countries, including India, including South America, all over Europe, and in many places where there's particular poverty and there's particular issues to do with resources. She has found solutions, and she's found a way to empower and train those people and get them helping their local communities. So, I just get really excited about pulling together this group of people, and what the magic that happens, of course, is in the networking, is what actually happens when those people actually are on that fabulous terrace and have those conversations in the breaks and what have you. So, for just 47 quid, you can come along and join us for that. But I would like people, if they are financially challenged, and I totally get the fact that you might have accommodation and travel and childcare and all of those things to arrange in addition to actually pitching up at a conference. Field Fisher are amazing, and they will always consider every application for a bursary, and they've said that, pleased to share with you that they will offer free places. If people want to be there, we want you to be there. And I say, if you can buy your ticket on the website, fabulous. But if that's a challenge for you, then please still communicate with us, and we'll find a way to get you there.
Janet, I see, I look at you and I see the magic. I see that what inspires you, it's a very special kind of love. Because working with people, young people who need more attention, is very hard. And it's very expensive as well to raise a child who needs special attention and extra time. And wow, I just think that emotionally is must be a roller coaster. And financially, it's really, really tough.
Yeah.
And when you are looking at the government, they will focus on let's say anything to do with pollution or crime, or they have a certain set of priorities, and unless it's fitting that description, unless it's a hazard to society, they will take their time, and perhaps it will take another 100 years. But we are here right now. We are here, and it's not about how. It's about getting together, and it's about loving each other more, being kind and compassionate, and creating that connection with these people who got no chance of reconnected with their own life, let alone society.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if you are listening right now and you think how much this could lift off your community, your society's shoulder when you give back another soul. I don't know if you know this, but Jamie Oliver, he was in a school with he was a special needs type of child.
Yeah.
And he said he left school with basically nothing. And he felt that school let him down. And look at him now.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is another example. So there's so many examples of people who...
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think that you know, I mean, just one of my own students, somebody that I've worked with for his communication, he's a young boy who was born deaf. And he's profoundly deaf, and he was an early child to get a cochlear implant in the UK. And as you may know now, children who are born deaf often get 2 cochlear implants very early, and actually their speech, language, and communication develops more normally. But with this young man, he only got 1 cochlear implant in 1 ear, and they weren't thinking as well which ear was going to be the best ear, because our language centres are in the left side of our brain, and so you need your cochlear implant on the right. But of course the medics look for which is the best cochlear and has the biggest loop in it still intact. So you know, learning to speak was a real challenge for this young person, and so his parents learnt British Sign Language, and he learnt British Sign Language, and they were using a bilingual approach. But his parents really wanted him to have the opportunity of learning clear communication, because they knew that he had an amazingly powerful message to be able to share. And to cut a very long story short, I worked with him from the age of about 7 through to when he was about 15, 16. And he sent me a little video just a few weeks ago. For the 2nd year running, he has won the Young Disabled Sports Personality of the Year for our eastern region of the UK. And he sent me the video of his speech that he made when he won his award. And yeah, brought absolute tears to my eyes, because he is just such an amazing young man, but such a role model for you know, anybody who has somebody in their family who is deaf or disabled, because he's just so, you know, so normal. So, and that's, you know, what I was saying, the ordinariness of impairment. Yeah, sure, he's deaf, but actually he's an amazing person. And you know, by me being able to give him his voice, his future is so bright, but so is the future of everybody he meets. And he inspires just by his presence. And I think that's the thing we've got to get across to governments, that every single one of these children and young people, and indeed adults with disabilities, are an amazing soul, and they have so much to offer the world, and they have so much to teach us, and we have so much to learn from them. And we need to find a way to enable them to do that. And the way that we do that at the moment, I believe, is to empower the parents and empower the teachers and the therapists, and bring us all together. And these young people will join us, I know. And as I say, you know, they'll think, what, you know, what's the big deal? But because they won't necessarily appreciate the fact that we've put all this into their development and to enable them to be who they are. But they will then be the shining beacons and the shining examples that can make us heard, as it were, because they will be able to do that for us and with us.
Wow, Janet, I'm so grateful you came here as a mom before anything, and you share your heartfelt story. And I just imagine that for the parents listening to us right now, I truly understand. I'm a parent as well, and even I'm more fortunate in that sense. I'm still a parent, and I could only imagine how much you worry about protecting your child, because there are so many others, layers and layers and layers of unknown fears across your mind right now, because the kid goes to school, and you don't know who is going to bully them. You don't know if they're going to pretend they're bullied. You don't know what's happening and what's next. And for that very reason, connect with Janet now. Take part, engage yourself, put your mind to this, because it's worth it. It's worth it. It's a legacy. It's not just another event. It's not just another conference. The conference happens only once a year, but you have the support throughout the year. And there are people out there who need to become aware of your suffering, and you really, really have to decide now to turn the fear, trade the fear, any fear you might have, for love. Takes a very special love, and Janet is here, we are here, and we are ready to do whatever it takes to make a difference.
Absolutely. And if you can't get to the conference, you can buy the book. That's the cheapest and easiest thing that you can do. There is a free guide as well that gives some of these pointers of things that are really helpful and empowering for people who are going through the system at the moment. And we are looking to having more conferences, so that this year, I hope in November, that we'll hold one in Manchester in the UK. Next year we will have hopefully 4, which will include Birmingham and maybe in the West Country in the UK as well as London. And you know, I am totally open to coming and speaking at any events or conferences where you think that there would be an audience that would actually like to hear what we're doing and how we're doing it and why we're doing it, so that they can be encouraged to join us too. And I'm totally open to doing that, both online and in person, literally anywhere in the world.
Janet, I truly hope you'll be back with great news, with success stories, inspire us all, make the impact and make the difference. And before we go, because we have to unfortunately say goodbye to our listeners in a couple of moments, what is the key message for today?
The message for me for today is to to start with yourself, to think, what is it that I can do? What can I do today that would actually support people globally to be heard? Whether it be in enabling your own voice to be heard, or you know, so who can you tell? Who do you know who has a child with a disability? Who do you know works with children with disabilities? Who can you tell about what you've heard here on the radio? That would be absolutely amazing.
From all of us, until next time, is goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Janet. Goodbye.
Thank you.